So we really need to be grateful, I believe, for the things that we have, even though we're dealing with a lot right now. Come on in, Tim. Come on in. Oh, okay. All right. So the other thing I want to thank are the other speakers, because it takes a lot to come here. Parker, where did you come from? Calgary. Lacombe. Okay, right. Jason, where are you from? Where? Oh, Drayton, right. And Tanya? Southeast of Calgary, right. So for a lot of you folks, these people travel often for little or no pay. So just want to thank all those guys for coming. Jason, he's, for me, the new kid on the block. Some of you may know him well, but for me, it's just a real treat to finally get to meet Jason. And Tanya is a new treat for me as well. So these are two speakers. I really hope they both sound very promising, but time will tell, right? So, and Tim, wherever he is now, there he is. So Tim and David and I headed off what I call TBA Phase 2. And we both all spoke together at, it was Red Dog's place, right? And so much has happened since then. But Tim is the salt of the earth. You are in for a treat with him. And I consider him wise, reliable, supportive, and he should be an MLA right now. But that's another story we'll have to save for another day. But all right. And finally, David. So I got a little bit of flack for going on a speaking event with David, because David has, David is I'm just going to start with the positives, and then I'll go to the negatives. Then I'm going to go back to the positives. Kind of the sandwich, right? So David is an absolutely brilliant strategist, and he has tremendous drive, and he is a fabulous speaker. So you are in for a treat tonight. Now for the negative. So Jordan Peterson talks about what when a woman is looking for a man, one of the things that they find sort of primally attractive, I'm probably butchering Jordan here right now, but he talks about what is appealing to women is if they sense that there is a monster within. But, and this is a big but, they need to be able to control that monster. And when women sense that, they feel very secure with that man, right? And it's very important. And so David has that in spades. He has the monster. And most of the time, he can control that monster. But it's kind of like a huge weighted blade. Every now and then, it goes in the wrong direction, right? But he is absolutely an astonishing individual. Many within the community have chosen to ostracize him. And I cannot do that, because I consider myself a Christian. And I'm told not to forgive once, not to forgive twice, but to forgive 490 times, 70 times 7. And I know that if we chopped down or ostracized or alienated all of the talented people because of mistakes they made, we will not win this referendum. We have to be united. We have to be strong. This is a really, really important task that is coming our way. It's probably the most important political task that we will experience in our lifetime. And it's a lot of stakes, lots on the table. So, all right. Now, one other person that I want to talk about before I get into the meat of this, and that's Danielle Smith, our premier. This woman is extremely selfless. I've known her from before she was the premier. And she is very, like David actually, very driven and very caring. She epitomizes servant leadership. And we are very, very blessed. If you don't pray for her, please consider doing so on a regular basis. She tells me regularly she needs every prayer she can get. And so please do it. And it's through the power of forgiveness, actually, that she came to be where she is. Because like David, she wound up in the political wilderness. And within the span of 1 year, she went from a political, essentially a nobody, to the premier of the province. And it was because of forgiveness. I won't get into it here. If you don't know the story, ask me later. It has to do with the wild rose and crossing the floor. All right, so now, referendum. We have essentially 3 options before us. I think nobody wants the status quo. Unless some people, when you argue with people online, they bring it up. But nobody really wants the status quo. Most people want one of 3 options. Either a fixed Canada, or they want to go independent. And I think that's probably the sentiment in this room. Or they want to become a united state. So those are the 3 options. I'm going to call option 1 a fixed Canada, staying with the old team. Team Canada, the old team. And then the option 2, I'm going to call no team. And we're just going to go it alone, maybe Saskatchewan, but we're doing it alone. And then the third one is Team USA, right? Those are our 3 options. And so when I'm talking about the old team, there is a problem. And so what is the definition of idiocy? Anyone? Doing the same thing over and over for 120 years, expecting a different result. I think we're done. We've been done for a while for some of us, but I think the most people realize that we're done. Now, one of the reasons, I just want to talk a little bit about why we're done. We modeled our government on the Westminster system. The Westminster system was developed in the British island, an island that is yay big. And then we took that model of government and we put it for a country that's yay big, 77 times larger. It's kind of like, if you remember anyone here remember the Beverly Hillbillies, the TV show? Yeah, all right. Well, it's kind of like we took a government like a Mini Cooper and we jammed, that was designed for that little island, and then we took it over to Canada and we jammed 10 provinces, 3 territories, all into the one Mini Cooper. And now we're all careening down the road together with Ontario at the wheel, Quebec being the driver, the critical driver, and poor old Alberta is sort of hanging off the side there, filling the gas tank to keep us going. But nobody has a clue where we're going, right? It's like the Beverly Hillbillies, but actually when you watch the show, the Beverly Hillbillies have a lot of sense. Not so for what we're doing. We don't have sense. It's just not working. And we have the problem of the unholy alliance of Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal. Here's the problem. No matter what we do, if we haven't figured it out now, those 3 are never going to yield power. Not going to happen. They'll talk, they'll say whatever you want. They're never going to yield power. So really, the only way that Canada can actually ever sustain itself is if the current system of government implodes, which it's doing. The only province that's keeping it afloat is us. So, ironically, if a person, so let's say it does implode, And so that now you have Alberta as its own nation, or working its way towards a nation, and Saskatchewan shortly follows. My dad said this: the rest, if Alberta goes, the rest of the Confederation is going to fall apart like dominoes. Within a decade, it'll all fall apart. It's very clear. So, but what if? What if all those provinces become nations of one sort or another, but then they decide to rebuild? They try to go back together. So you've got your 10 provinces, you've got your 3 territories, you got 13 colonies. Does that sound familiar? And they go together and they say, let's start over new as all equal. They could. And actually, that is probably a very real possibility. But it's never going to happen unless Alberta declares independence. So ironically, the people who want to keep Canada and they know in their gut that what the status quo cannot last. Ironically, if those people really want to keep Canada, then they have to separate. They have to vote for independence, for Alberta independence, because that is the catalyst that gets everything going. And I would suggest that we don't, if that ever happens, let's not have the capital in Ottawa. Let's leave Ottawa to become basically a place in history. The logical place would actually be Winnipeg, because Winnipeg is almost dead center to the country, east-west. It's like within 10 kilometers. So anyway, that's the old team. But the thing I wanted to share with you tonight is really, even people who want to save Canada, really save Canada, they should be voting for independence for Alberta. Because the faster they do that, the faster we save Canada. So now, I'm going to talk about no team. Now, I'm going to talk about it very little because I know others are going to be talking about it at length. So, but this is the option where we have the opportunity to build a better nation. We can look at what the UK did, we can look at what other governments have done, we can look at what the United States, and we can create a better nation than ever before. We can throw out the stuff that we don't like. We can have our own criminal code. We can stop people from the revolving doors. All the things that Pierre Poilievre talks about, we can actually do, right? So there's that. And we have control of our own destiny, and we no longer answer to a distant capital. Other people are going to talk about this more, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to finally bring up new team, Team USA. So the other point here is that some people talk about going directly to statehood. They think about the possibility of Trump saying, we'll just make you a state. And I did actually talk with about 6 constitutional professors on this matter, and they say, don't do it. These are U.S. Constitution. They said, you want to go the route of Texas. Now, I'm not sure how many of you people know the history of Texas, but Texas was a state of Mexico for 300 years. And then it declared its own independence from Mexico, and it became the Republic of Texas in 1836. And it was its own nation for 10 years. And after that, it was invited into the Union, and it became a state, the United States. Now, the interesting thing with it is because they went that way, because they didn't start, most of the Western states began as territories. And one of the dangers of being a territory is you lose your control of public land. So all of the land, all the public land, what we call crown land here in Canada, they call it public land, that is all owned by Washington, D.C., with the exception of one state, Texas. Texas controls its own public land. So if we go the route of independence first, then we would be able to negotiate and maintain control of our own, what we currently call Crown land. So in other words, all three options, people who are in favor of saving Canada, the people who want an independent Alberta, and the people who want to eventually become a state, all three options have one immediate step: yes to Alberta independence. So that's something that's important I wanted to share with you. Now, and the other thing I want to warn you about is the Clarity Act. So there's only one. So those who don't know, the Clarity Act followed the Quebec referendums, and it allows if a province wants to separate, it shows the pathway to do that. There's only one country in the world that has actual legislation to allow a part of that country to break away, and that's Canada. Remember, these are the same folks we've been dealing with for 120 years. I warn you, my trust level for things like the Clarity Act is about as high as it is with Ottawa right now. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. So the Clarity Act is a big red herring. The important thing is, if we have a referendum of independence, the magic number is 50% plus 1. Almost every nation in the world recognizes that as a declaration of independence. Most importantly, the one in the neighbor to our south recognizes that as independence. So that's what we do. We don't even play games with the Clarity Act. We just move forward, declare our independence, and start talking as a sovereign nation. All right. So, how?
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, well, I think we'll have question and answer in a little bit. So bear with me. I'm almost done. So, oh my gosh. Okay. How? So, loving thy neighbor can lead to friendship. So what I'm going to talk about is, right now we're at 1/3 support. We need to be at 2/3. We need to double. The stakes are high. Everyone needs to be informed, and deep discussions have to take place. A lost referendum means we won't get another chance for at least another decade. This is moving faster than I would like it to be, but God has shown me miracle after miracle politically. So we need to start engaging with our neighbors. We have neighbors who still think Canada is the way to go. Most of the time it's because they don't know the facts. But it's such a deeply polarized issue. It's very hard to get past that point. So I'm going to recommend this. I'm going to ask you to talk to one of your neighbors, one of your friends who you think is on the pro-Canada side, the pro-Confederation side, the status quo side, and say, just give them a call and say, let's get together to discuss our future together. Now, they may think you've just joined an MLM, but whatever. Some of them won't go for it. But whatever you think will work, get them to the table. And by the table, I mean your dinner table. Invite them to dinner. Lots of things can happen over a dinner table. And so what I recommend is, when you're talking to them, God gave us 2 ears, right, and 1 mouth. Listen and learn and try and repeat back to them, so they know that what you are doing is you genuinely are interested in them. You genuinely respect them. And the more you talk about it, and the more you just quietly bring the issues up, they will find that they're coming around. And the moment you get one, congratulations. If we do that over and over and over again, we are going to win this referendum. All right. So, I'm not done. I'm going to try, though. I'm trying. All right. Before wrapping up, I would like you to come and see me in the back with my lovely wife, Grace, and we can talk. And I would very much appreciate your support. We have books that are hugely important, not just to Alberta, but also to the entire Christian world. We believe that the whole history program has been co-opted, and that the books that we provide tell the true story of the last 2,000 years. And so it would be very helpful if you went and saw us. So, all right, thank you very much.
Now, the irony, I was late because I was working on my slides. Isn't that funny? And apparently my phone goes into do not disturb mode. So I had a notification that said, you have to get ready and leave now. And I'm busy typing. And I missed my, my alarm. So I apologize for being late. There we go. Whoops. Another funny thing, the day I was married, my wife is late. I hope my wife doesn't see this. At the welcome to the family speech, my father-in-law said, "Tim, I hope you enjoy being late." And so I hate being late, so it's really ironic that she's not here and I'm still late. Oh, well, that's not going to work. We'll improvise. So my name is Tim Hoven. I am a farmer, believe it or not, from the western edge, or eastern edge of Clearwater County. I think it's all set. From the eastern edge of Clearwater County, I served on municipal council. I'm a former reeve of Clearwater County. And back in 2022, I got involved in provincial politics, was disqualified from running as a candidate for the UCP party for my extreme views. And now I find myself becoming an Alberta independent. So imagine you are in a car heading towards a cliff and you fly off, you're going 100 miles an hour. Does it make any sense at all to slow down? It doesn't. If you're going 100 and you slow down to 60, you're still going off the cliff. Where's my mouse now? See, this is why you should never be late, so you can get your AV ready. This, I think, is a perfect illustration of what's going on in Canada right now. We are heading off the cliff at 100 miles an hour, and none of our political leaders have enough common sense to say we have to change direction. And to me, that is what Alberta independence is all about. It's changing direction so we have a positive future instead of flying off the cliff. What's that cliff? I'll tell you, this is not some conspiracy theory. This is not something you listen to some extreme guy on YouTube. A few months ago, this report was leaked out of the Prime Minister's office. It's all about social mobility. What social mobility is, it's for you. If you work hard, can you improve your life and go from lower class to middle class, or from middle class to upper class? So the PMO's office did a report on this. And what they said is by 2040, there is no hope for anyone to improve their lives and to change their social standing. Some of the interesting things in this report is, number one, people are going to start to fish and hunt, not for fun, but because they won't be able to afford food. So literally, the government is saying in 15 years, people might be hunting squirrels in the park to feed themselves. In 2040, owning a home is not going to be a realistic opportunity for not some, not for a few, but for many. The only way, according to the Prime Minister's office, the only way people can improve their lot in life is when your parents die and you get their inheritance. A very, very bleak way of looking at the future. A year ago, there was a secret RCMP report leaked. And what it said is that people may revolt within the next 5 years when they realize how bad Canada is and how they have no hope for improving things. So I'm going to give you a very, very brief history of Canada because we're running out of time. Canada really started in the early 1700s. It was a bunch of fur traders, a bunch of really rough people, kind of like most of Albertans right now. But our neighbors to the south decided to have a war for independence. And so when the Americans won that war, all the people who loved the British Crown, all the people, all the magistrates, all the people involved in trade with the United Kingdom, they were very disappointed and they left. They were frustrated. They were broke. They saw their way of life ending. So a majority of them moved north to Quebec, Nova Scotia, and they set up the same type of system that existed in the States and in the world. They didn't want the freedom that the Americans had. They liked it the old way. The mercantile system was the way the economy worked back then. Britain had colonies all around the world. They grew the tea, they grew the cotton, they shipped it all over to London, they processed it, and then London resold it around the world. The Americans didn't like that, because no matter how hard they worked, they were always just reduced to producing the raw materials, and London got all the cream out of the procedure. They made all the money. So the Loyalists move up to Canada, and they set up the exact same type of system. When these people took control, the fur traders and everyone who had been here before were so mad, they actually led 2 rebellions in 1887 and 1888. Most people don't know that, but Canada does have a history of rebellion. The Loyalists compromised a bit, and they gave these ruffians just enough to make them go home and stop fighting. And they didn't give them a penny more. So they kept the control, they kept all the power, and they kept all the ways to make the money and to take the cream. And then after Confederation, these people kept the same type of system for the new provinces being formed in the West. This is an editorial cartoon in a newspaper from 1915. It's got the cows stretching from Alberta back to eastern Canada. Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba do all the work, and the people in the east just get all the cream. So, like Vince was saying, the people in the east who are getting the cream and not having to do all the work, they didn't want to change the system. They still don't want to have to change the system. Listen, if you had that kind of opportunity, if you had that system rigged to benefit you, would you want to change it? Of course not. Why would they give up a good thing? So this was just on X the other day. How depressing is this? In 2025, the average Canadian family will earn $158,000 in income and pay an estimated $68,000 in taxes. If the average Canadian family had to pay its taxes up front, it would have worked until June 7th to pay the total tax bill imposed on it by all the 3 levels of government. All that money flows to the east, or a lot of that money flows to the east, and then if you look at what happened with the Arrive Can app, they just use that money and distribute it to their friends. There is no way the people who benefit from a corrupt system are going to want to change. This will only stop when we make it stop. It is a corrupt system, and it's not going to be easy to change it. It's not going to be easy to break that system. We cannot stay silent when this corruption seeks to cause suffering on so many of us. Too many people choose not to speak, or they choose not to stand up. And that just gives this corrupt organization the ability to keep taking more and more and more. You cannot hide. You cannot stay home and hope that it goes away, because it won't. And if you stay home and don't get involved, they're just going to take a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you have nothing left. So if you have a chain, I'm a farmer, so I'm going to use a chain example. I'm towing something out, towing a tractor out of the mud. Where is that chain going to break when the tension gets really hard. The weakest link, exactly. So if you take your money, your resources, your time, and you fix the second weakest link, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, what's going to happen when there's pressure on that chain? Where's it going to break? Still the weakest link. You've wasted everything trying to fix the wrong thing. And the weakest link right now for Canada is the Constitution and our relationship with the rest of this country. The primary question that you have to answer is, do you want to be free? That's what it comes down to. This is a question you should think about when you shut your eyes as you go to sleep tonight. This should be the question you talk with your children and grandchildren. Do you want to be free? And I can promise you this, in about 30 or 40 years, your grandchildren are going to be asking you, what did you do, Grandpa? What did you do, Grandma, when Alberta had the opportunity to be free? Were you out there fighting for it, or were you sitting at home waiting for the next Netflix series to come on, or staying home and watching the Oilers game? Is the future worth fighting for? This guy sure thought it was. Now, we all think this is a nice picture about freedom. This was taken in Tiananmen Square back in 1989, and a lone Chinese man stood up against a whole column of tanks. The photo doesn't do it justice. There's actually about 30 tanks all lined up, and one guy stopped them all. The sad thing about this picture, there should have been about 100,000 Chinese people standing in front of those tanks, because no one knows what happened to that guy. He disappeared. The communists took care of him. If freedom is worth fighting for, it might cost us a lot. There are many competing visions for the future of the world right now. We have the UN Sustainable Goals, we have the WEF, we have MAGA to the south of us, we've got the Fabians, we've got everyone all fighting for control of the world. We've got the Chinese communists doing the same thing. And they're all working for their agenda. The problem we have, or one of the many problems we have, is that there is no agenda that focuses on making the world a better place for you, your children, or your grandchildren. It's all some centralized power that wants to use you like I grow cattle on my farm. You're just going to be a tax slave. We need to unite behind a vision for a better province, a better nation, and then work like we've never worked before to make that come alive. The most nefarious thing that all these groups are doing, and we can look at Mr. Carney right now in our Liberal government in Ottawa, they are spreading hopelessness right now. They're trying to make everyone in this room feel like you have no power, you have no authority, and most of all, you have no hope to make your world better. Because if you have no hope, there is no reason to fight. They are selling and promoting hopelessness to everyone. And that's a pretty bleak world for us to live in. The phoenix is a mythological story from ancient Egypt. And what it is the phoenix bird was a beautiful, glorious bird. And when it could see that the cycle was changing, that things were going to start to collapse, it made a beautiful nest, bedded down in the nest, and then burst into flames. And the fire consumed it, it consumed the nest, it destroyed everything. And I think that is exactly where we are as a province right now. If you look at the price of houses, the price of food, the corruption in the UCP party, the criminal justice system, apparently there is a guy in BC who had a modest amount of child porn on his computer, and that's okay apparently because it was released without bail. The whole system is broken. Everything is in ashes. In fact, the one good thing going on right now is that Albertans are waking up and they're showing up to meetings like this all across the province because they want to rise out of those ashes. The only problem is to rise like the phoenix, first you're going to have to burn. And we are in a pretty sad state. And we have to be willing to risk everything to make this better future happen. We've got Tamara, we've got Chris, who are involved with the Freedom Convoy, and those people paid a lot. They burned. So the question for you is, what are you willing to risk to make this a reality? At what point is it going to be too much for you and make you stop? There is no rebirth without dying first. The Premier of Quebec a few weeks ago was saying how Alberta has no culture. It's just an oil derrick. I disagree 100%. We are a transformed people. I think back to the type of person I was back in 2015, only 10 years ago. And to be honest, I'm a little embarrassed. I was naive. I thought everything was great. Just show up once every 4 years, vote, and everything will be fine. But 10 years of Liberal rule, having the NDP have power for 4 years, going through all the COVID restrictions, we saw how a democracy can fall into tyranny very, very quickly. It transformed us into something better, something more powerful, and I think finally it transformed us into realizing that we do not want to be slaves to this institutional system. I've had many conversations with seniors, and they talk about how they could never, ever vote to leave Canada because of this feeling they have about it. And I think a big part of that comes back to the Super Series back in 1972 when Paul Henderson scored for Canada and defeated the Soviet Union. And so many people cling to these feelings and thoughts from 50 years ago as a reason that we should remain in Canada. We have to go on fact, not on our feelings. For younger people, it might be the golden goal that Sidney Crosby scored in 2010. But to be a nation, you need more than warm feelings and warm memories. This is a picture, a painting by Joseph Court from 1827. It's called The Flood. And what you have there is you have a man, and he's stretching and reaching, trying to save his old father in the flood. And meanwhile, right next to him is his wife and his child. And the saddest part about this picture is this man is going to lose everything because he's trying to save the past instead of saving the present and the future. So many of these elbows up Canadians are clinging to the past, and they're willing to throw away the future for some warm memories. Struggling to save your past is your doom. You will sacrifice the present and your future. Do not cling to the past. You need to save the future. You can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you can't choose both. And there are many people who are comfortable with the way things are, even though they're paying $90 for 2 T-bone steaks in the grocery store. We have to get out of our comfort and into courage so we can make change happen. No amount of feeling sorry for yourself or the situation you happen to find yourself in is going to fix it. The only thing that matters now is action. That means you all have to do something, not just the 5 speakers here tonight, because 5 people in front of a column of tanks isn't going to last very long. It's going to be 1.5 million people voting yes in a referendum to make it happen. Action is the only solution to our problems. It is useless to wait for a breakthrough, for the revolution, the nuclear apocalypse, or a social movement. To go on waiting is madness. The catastrophe is not coming, it is here. We are already situated within the collapse of our civilization. It is within this reality we have to choose sides. We cannot cling to the past. We have to look at the future, we have to look at our options, and then we have to make it come alive. At some point, you will have to stop running and take a stand. It's either you your children, or your grandchildren. And it's better that it comes to you than to them. I have 8 children. I have 3 grandchildren. And I look at the bleak future that our governments are giving to them, and that is what drives me to action every day. I've got 2 sick parents. My wife's got sick parents. I'm trying to run a farm. But over these next 18 months before the referendum, this is the most important thing I can spend my time on. I have to be involved with fixing this weak link where we find ourselves. Because Danielle Smith told Carney, I want these 9 things to help the oil and gas industry to improve the province's revenues. That's not going to fix anything. Might increase government coffers a little bit. But the same problems we had 50 years ago that we have now are still going to be here in 50 years unless good people like you stand up and say, it is enough. We have to change. The future is in your hands right now. The future is in our hands right now. And we have to act like it. So what you can do, first of all, I'm a big believer in the power of municipal government. Tonight even, you could go home, find your local councillor or local mayor, send them an email, and ask where they stand on Alberta independence. We need enough people asking that and acting on it that all these politicians know that this will be the primary issue in these upcoming municipal elections in the fall. Another thing you can do, organize a meeting like this one. There are many speakers who want to come and share their story and tell people to act, but we need people like you to organize meetings so we can show up. Volunteer to sit on local boards like the Ag Society, run for local office. I'm the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce in Rocky Mountain House. Our chamber just received an award for being one of the top chambers of commerce in the province for this year. And because of my independent stand, I now have 2 people actively seeking to get me removed from the board because they disagree with my political views. This is only going to get harder and more difficult. There's going to be more scars. There's going to be more fire. But just like that guy in front of the tank, we need everyone to stand up and turn the tide. You need to find and connect with other independent-minded people. If you sit at home by yourself, you won't have the courage to stand up. But by getting involved and organizing, you can make a difference. And then finally, you need to find candidates who are pro-independence in this upcoming election and work for them, donate money to them, and help them get elected so our municipal councils are all freedom-minded and independence-minded in October 2025. This province is ours. This nation is ours. It does not belong to Carney. It does not belong to the WEF or even the King of England or the Laurentian elite out east. It doesn't belong to Danielle. It belongs to us, the people of Alberta. We have to remember that there are more of us who want better lives for our children than people who don't want that. They may not know they're pro-independence, but everyone is pro-family. Everyone is pro-children and grandchildren. We need to reach out to those people, connect with them, and get them activated so they can work towards this. We will have one chance to make this happen. One day, one vote to change everyone's future. One little check mark to change that weakest link for our children and our grandchildren. So if you'd like to reach out, I've got a Substack at timhoven.com. I am working on a website for Phoenix. It's phoenixalberta.com. You can sign up there hopefully in the next couple of days. But in closing, I'd like to say we have one chance. And so I hope that you can devote some of your life, some of your time, some of your money to make this a reality over the next 18 months. Thank you very much.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's way up there. Yeah. Can we come back a little bit?
You want to come back down?
A little bit. I'm absolutely used to having conversations with people, but not seeing them. When you're doing a podcast in a fifth wheel in the middle of nowhere by Breton, Alberta, you don't get to see the people that are watching. So I'm really, really glad that you all came out tonight and didn't decide to stay home to watch that game. Because quite frankly, that game's a distraction. It will distract a lot of people. Look over here, not over here. When there's a fire behind you, they tell you on the news, there's nothing to see here, because they like to distract you, keep you very timid, and keep you occupied with things other than what's really important. And after 600 interviews on my show over the last 2.5 years, that's exactly what I learned. We have a media system that's absolutely designed to distract you, confuse you, and most importantly, scare you. Nothing gets people off of the podium, out of the chair, and into their couch faster than fear. Stay home. Lock down. 6 feet apart. Wear a mask, hide your face. Don't go to Christmas. They feared you to separate. They made sure that you didn't know what was really going on. And if you started to talk to your friends and they said, hey, look, maybe this stuff doesn't work, you know, that little poke in the arm they were doing, you got chastised by your own family, your own neighbors. Some of us still don't talk to certain family members because they won't talk to us. Raise your hand if you know anybody in your family or your neighborhood that won't talk to you because you came out with some truth. That's happening again, David, of course. That's happening again. Safe and effective. Don't split the vote. Team Canada. Short little phrases that you can repeat. Elbows up. Shoulders back if you listen to Jan Arden. Who listens to her now? We got to burn those DVDs and CDs, right? But in seriousness, my concern here is the deck is stacked against us. Media will not be on our side. Benita kind of joked that CBC showed up and maybe we'll see what they say. We know what they're going to say. Look at these separatists trying to destroy Canada. They can't afford it. They shouldn't do it. Those dumb people out west. We know what they're going to say. They may use different words, but it's exactly the message that they want. Because the media has not been fair for quite some time. I was having a conversation with my wife and going, what if we got back to the way it used to be? Is that what we really want? Because it brought us here. Those were the days that we thought were great. Those steps brought us to here. And how great was it? Sesame Street, all those kind of shows, we thought they were wholesome and good. But have you watched some of it and looked at it again with adult eyes? Indoctrination started a long time ago. And as we get older and have our own children and put them in front of the TV and see what they're doing, we start to learn, oh my gosh, it's in the character, it's in the story, it's in the series, it's everywhere. And does it just stop with our children? Absolutely not. Media is not fair. As an independent journalist with a show, this is exactly what I learned over the last 2.5 years. And I'll be honest with you all, because that's just who I am, brutally honest. Gets me in trouble a lot, by the way. I was naive. And I thought, look, I'm just going to do a show, have a couple conversations. But I was shocked to see how much misinformation there truly was from the mainstream. Even some of the alt. We won't get into names. But all of them have agendas that they're trying to push on you. And if you look really closely, and honestly, they use fear. They try and scare you with it. Why? Because you shut down your logic and rational part of your brain when you have fear and adrenaline going. When you're trying to save grandma, you'll do almost anything, right? So there's going to be a major campaign against everybody in this room everybody in this province, all these speakers. They're going to come after us as a group, individual, and even personal. They're going to come and try and dig up dirt. And if they can't find dirt, they'll just make it up. We don't have the mechanisms to fight that. So they can say quite literally whatever they want. MLAs, MPs, city councillors, Tim said reach out to them. They preemptively reached out to you guys. They reached out to the Pioneer Museum and said, shut it down or we cut your funding. We're already against them. Now, I ran for office as an MP, maybe foolishly, but I definitely wanted to see how this thing worked from the inside. Go talk to hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. Split the vote. Don't split the vote. I love what you have to say. I love your platform. I love what you're going to do. I love your fight. I love everything about you. But another election, not this one. And what did Alberta do? Showed up in record numbers. Voted hard, even for a party they didn't fully trust, because they didn't trust the other guy even more. And what do we get? Well, a lot of blue on the map, but we still have a globalist, open, not even hiding it anymore, running this country. How is this fair? This deck is stacked. If you're in Alberta, you don't have a chance. You can vote Conservative all day long. You can create a Reform Party all day long. You're going to lose by the time you hit Thunder Bay. The deck is stacked. It's not getting better. And this was a cold reality I got going through the process. Are our elections fair? Yeah, I trust them. A couple of ballots here and there, a couple of boxes going home here and there, but overall, there was a lot of people out east with a lot of big towers around them who basically decided what's going to happen. They believed the propaganda that they got. Elbows up, elbows up. But at the same time, Carney's already talking to Trump about getting rid of the tariffs before the election happened. But he didn't tell you that because that's not elbows up anymore, that's hands out. The deck is stacked. The legal system. I've watched this intimately, sitting in the courtrooms. Tamara and Chris, Pat King, the Coots men, watching it. Criminal code comes out of Ottawa. I almost joined the men in remand. Why? Did I bring a gun to a protest? No. Did I park a truck in front of somebody's parking spot or their driveway? No. I went on my podcast to tell people what was going on in the courtroom. And they wanted to give me 2 years for a publication ban violation. Criminal Code of Canada. I could have lied, said a unicorn peed on the judge. Nothing would happen to me. But I tell the world that there's 2 applications and here's what they're about. I get a year for each of those. The deck is stacked. Politicians, for a long time while I was on the campaign trail, I heard the Conservative people say, we were just the opposition. Just the opposition? Well, we couldn't do much. Excuse me? Is that the Westminster system? Because you're the opposition, you really can't do much? Better vote for us so that we can get the majority this time, or minority even. But they didn't win. So does that mean 4 more years of just the opposition? The deck is stacked. So whether it's media, legal, or politicians, Alberta has no chance to get representation. We heard Vince talk about the Clarity Act. Just like everything else, they name things these beautiful names, but they're misdirecting you. There's nothing clear about that act. What is the magic number? What is the magic question? What is the full process? It ain't clear. Read it. It's basically, we will argue this later. Supreme Court, 3 of them from Quebec, that's by law. 3 of them from Ottawa, by tradition. 2 from the West, that includes all the provinces and the territories, and the 1 from the East. The deck is stacked. Our judges out here, federally appointed, not elected, you can't remove them. You need a prime minister to change them. Not a chance are we going to fix things through the current system. A declaration of independence is the only path forward if you really do want to change in Alberta. It won't be easy. I had David on stage in Drayton Valley where he figuratively and almost literally threw water in my face because it really woke me up. It won't be easy. It will be tough. We need friends. We need assistance. We need Trump. Because Canada definitely does not understand. Alberta is the path forward to fix Canada. Bruce Party's been on my show a few times, a lawyer out of Ontario. He says it's up to Alberta. Your time is now. Don't waste it. Because if Canada has a future, Alberta has to take that big step forward. And it's not Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, BC, get together, do a West thing. There ain't time for that. There's not enough support for that. Clarity Act doesn't even allow that. It has to be one province at a time. Now, this room is full of good people who came to hear some speeches, collect some information, and ask some questions. I know someone over here keeps asking for questions. We'll get there. But we need more. In the APP, we call them the Ambers. These are people who are not quite sure what they're going to do yet. There's that middle third. We need to talk to them. Vince is right. Tim is right. David will be right too. And I'm sorry, Tanya. Tanya is going to nail it too. Because we need to talk to the people who don't know yet, don't understand why the deck is stacked. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is when you go home, reach out to 5 people and just say, hey, check out this video. Max, where is he? He's going to have it on his freedomcalendar.net, I think something like that. Share it out. And just have them listen to it. You don't have to vote today. But if you listen to the media right now, you can see the deck is stacked. Why don't they want us to talk? Why are MLAs, MPs, and city councillors stopping the conversation at the Pioneer Museum? It's just a conversation. If we get to a referendum, we get to a yes, that's democracy. They're trying to shut it down before we even get there. That should tell you everything you need to know. The deck is stacked. So, Declaration of Independence, 50% plus 1, in the spring, and we might get this particular referendum voted on. With or without the Clarity Act, we need to do this. So I've got 2 young boys that I could give a future to that's better than the one that I just sat through. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Make sure you reach out to 5 people when you get home and share this video to them. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. All good? Yep, perfect. Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for having the APP be invited to this talk as well. Thanks for all the groups and the speakers who've come together tonight to love on Alberta. I come here tonight as a farmer, a teacher, a mom, and just a girl who loves Alberta. In fact, I was thinking about it when I was sitting there because I often play with this necklace my daughter gave me, and it says Al freaking Berta on it. And I think about that often. I come like I imagine most of you have, because I've had enough of watching this province give and give while getting less and less in return. You can feel it. In every corner of this province, people are fed up. We've done everything right. We've worked hard. We've raised good families. We've paid our dues and our taxes, and still we're falling behind. You see it when local businesses shutter while bureaucrats in Ottawa cash bonuses, or when our MPs vote themselves pay raises, and yet our government won't even table a budget. When the energy that built this country gets landlocked and labeled dirty, while foreign oil flows in without question. When our kids growing up being told not to expect too much because Ottawa would rather squeeze them for tax dollars than help them build a future worth staying for. This isn't just about economics, it's about dignity. It's about Albertans being told to carry the load and then to be quiet about it. But Albertans don't do quiet. We do honest work, we do solutions, we do community, and now we're doing sovereignty. We were made to lead. I love this province, not just the land, but the people, the grit, the pride, the quiet strength of folks who keep going even when the odds are stacked against them. And I love the sovereignty movement that is growing with each person who unites with the APP. I first got involved in the Alberta Prosperity Project in 2021, not because I was looking for a fight, but something inside me had snapped. A deep, quiet conviction that I realized we could not keep doing this to ourselves or to our kids. We could not keep allowing our beloved Alberta to be treated this way. I still remember that very first APP meeting. I was listening to Dr. Dennis Modry speak for the first time, and the numbers that he was sharing with me hit me like a ton of bricks. I'll share some of them with you as I go through this as well. And the one fact in particular stuck with me and still sticks with me. If it weren't for the National Energy Program of Trudeau Sr., and if it wasn't for the transfer payments, the last 40 years, Albertans could have spent with a flat income tax of 8 to 10%. For the last 40 years. Can you imagine that? Think about what that means to your parents, your families. Your parents could have retired earlier. Your community keeping more of what it earned. Your kids having better jobs, more opportunity. Instead, we've been taxed, benched, and bled dry while being told to be patient, to stick with the team. But Team Canada, they left us on the sidelines long ago, and it was confirmed again on Election Day, April 28th. While we carried this country on our backs, we got lecture after lecture, restriction after restriction, regulation after regulation. Well, I'm done waiting, and I'm done hoping that Ottawa changes. There was a part of me that was still holding out hope before this last federal election. I did work on a federal election campaign for a very good man. I still thought that I might be fighting for a sovereign Alberta within Canada. But election night came and it quickly became clear that the best option was now for a sovereign Alberta without Canada. Because Alberta is not a problem to be managed. It's actually a pillar of prosperity. And it's time we started acting like it. We have a strong leader in this province who has helped the sovereignty movement, introducing Bill 54, making tactical movements, and standing up against Ottawa. But at the end of the day, we don't need approval of the leadership of government. This is grassroots, truly driven and led by the people. The sovereignty movement is about accountability. It's about building a future where decisions about Alberta are made in Alberta by Albertans, where our kids and grandkids have more opportunity, not less, where our communities thrive and not just survive. So let's talk about what's at stake in some real numbers here. Alberta sends between $20 and $28 billion to Ottawa every year that we don't get back, that does not get invested back into Alberta. That's roughly $6,000 per person. So if you have an average family of 4, that's $24,000 your family is sending out that's not getting any services back for. That is mind-blowing. $14 billion of that is equalization, and the lion's share of it goes to Quebec. In the last decade alone, Alberta has lost $500 billion in planned investment due to federal policy. And the lack of pipeline access, that costs us $26.5 billion every year. Canada also ranks dead last in economic growth among industrialized nations. Alberta is paying the price for that one too. So those numbers aren't abstract. That's your roads, your hospitals, your kids' school funding, it's grocery prices, power bills, whether or not you can afford to retire. According to the APP's research paper, a sovereign Alberta could reduce personal income taxes, eliminate federal tax burdens, and still increase per capita program spending. That's how efficient and rich this province truly is when we control our own wallet. And here's what's exciting. The Alberta Prosperity Project is about to release a fully costed budget for a sovereign Alberta. Because I think a lot of people that are kind of sitting on the fence still really want to know the numbers and the economics. So that is being created and it will be out shortly. APP's own Jeff Rath is helping lead this initiative, and he said, from looking at the numbers and doing this analysis, Alberta could be like Monaco. Imagine that, not just a province, but one of the most prosperous nations in the world. So what does that look like for you personally? In year 1 of becoming a sovereign Alberta, personal income tax would be cut in half. In year 5, elimination of income tax altogether. Pensions doubled. Tripled Indigenous funding with constitutionalized revenue sharing to finally lift communities out of poverty. Massive savings for families, like no federal carbon tax, no Ottawa overhead, no funneling of your dollars to a government that doesn't understand our needs. With control of our own wealth and industry, we could fund our local hospitals, strong schools that prepare our kids for success, a secure Alberta pension plan, which would offer bigger payouts and be locally controlled, infrastructure that connects Alberta, and policing and justice that protects our towns and country, not just coddling repeat offenders. And we could reclaim our 5 freedoms to prosperity. Freedom from federal income tax, gone. Freedom from the carbon tax, gone. From excise tax, from equalization, and the freedom to build our Alberta Constitution based on the values of Albertans. We could also unlock the freedom to chart our own future, where Alberta energy fuels Alberta prosperity, and where responsible development actually happens without 1,000 bureaucrats standing in the way. Imagine a sovereign Alberta where a single mom takes home hundreds more each month, or a young grad doesn't have to leave to chase opportunity because Alberta is booming with jobs in energy, trades, tech, and small business. The Alberta advantage could be restored. Indigenous families could gain control over their own futures with real investment, constitutionally protected revenue sharing, and local decision-making that lifts communities up, and maybe some clean drinking water. Young families across rural Alberta can buy a home, afford childcare, access reliable healthcare, and know that your kids have a reason to stay and build a future right here. To quote one of our recent APP articles, when a clown moves into the palace, he doesn't become a king, the palace becomes a circus. Well, Ottawa's clown show isn't comedy, it's a crisis, and it's costing us our future. The Citizens Initiative Act and Bill 54 give Albertans a clear democratic path to force a referendum. But again, I don't even think that we need that. It's the people that are driving this, and the people will dictate if we want to be a sovereign nation or not. Bill 54 lowered the threshold to just 177,000 signatures, which will be legislated, I believe June 23rd is expected, or July 2nd. And already, we have more than 250,000 signatures committed to that, which sounds great. That's awesome. That's just to force the referendum question to happen. Those numbers are not big enough to win the referendum, so we need to increase our numbers continually. These laws put the power where it belongs, in your hands. We no longer have to wait on politicians. We can bring this to a vote directly, lawfully, and powerfully. The Clarity Act confirms Alberta's right to vote on sovereignty. And once we win that vote, international law applies, just as it did when Canada recognized Kosovo and its independence in 2008. That same process applies here. The path is legal, democratic, and it's already underway. And that's why we're here tonight, because people are waking up. We've tried asking, we've tried cooperating, we've tried waiting, but the time has come to build something lasting and not just resist what's broken. People often ask if we can truly do this. Yes, the Constitution allows it. No, we don't need Ottawa's permission. No, we won't lose our pensions. In fact, they'll be better managed and more generous, and I can't wait till that budget comes out because the numbers are going to blow your mind. Yes, we'll have access to trade. In fact, Alberta will negotiate directly for pipelines, rail, and export routes without Ottawa standing in the way. We hold a critical position in Canada's supply chain, with major rail lines running right through Alberta that connect the east to the Port of Vancouver. That's real leverage, and in trade negotiations, leverage is everything. No, this won't hurt Indigenous communities. It will empower them with funding, autonomy, and resource equity. And yes, Alberta has the natural resources, the people, and the legal framework to thrive on its own. So where do we go from here? We've seen the path forward, we've laid the groundwork, and now it's time to act with precision. To quote our CEO, Mitch Sylvester, we need to remain laser focused. This isn't the time for distraction or division. It's the time for unity, for strategy, and discipline. It's time for commitment. You know, I've been in those kitchens and coffee shops hearing folks say, I'm just one person, what could I possibly do? But here's the truth, as stated by Samuel Adams. It doesn't take a majority to prevail. It takes an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. And you are that brush fire. So before you leave tonight, I'm asking you to do 3 things. The first one is to sign your intent to vote yes on a future referendum at albertaprosperityproject.com. If you don't want to go to the website, I actually have it as my screensaver on my phone, so you can come scan my QR code if you'd want to. So, and just to clarify, in case that's not, if you're not fully understanding what that is, that's not your referendum vote, but that's signing your intent to say, yes, I would vote yes on a referendum. The point of doing that is because when the referendum question is actually posed and Elections Alberta approves our question, with the passing of Bill 54, we will then have 120 days to collect 177,000 wet signatures. The numbers have come down thanks to Daniel Smith's bill, but that is still a big task. By pre-signing, we actually know where to find you and can go and collect those wet signatures to make sure that we get this referendum question put on the table. The second thing I'd like to ask you to do is to get 10 others to sign. Not just to have the conversations and to have independence-minded talks, but actually get them to sign up so that we have those numbers starting to build. And then third, stay engaged. Join these events, share content, wear your Alberta pride. This is how we win, not with headlines, not with politicians, but with steady, relentless, principled action by Albertans who've had enough. Because this isn't just about policy. It's about our families, our freedom, and our future. And I believe with every ounce of who I am, Alberta is absolutely worth it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Benita is right. We have done a lot of these together. This has got to be like 60. So thank you, Benita. You're a true freedom warrior. I'd also like to thank Darlene Clark very much. I can't seem to find her in the crowd there, but I did a meeting about 2.5 weeks ago in Sylvan Lake, and I asked everyone in the crowd whether they would hold a meeting. 2 people did. And now I've been in front of, in the last 2 days, over 400 people. There were 150 people in Three Hills last night, and there are, it looks like, roughly about 200 people here tonight, maybe a little bit less. I want to talk a little bit about Vince's many kind compliments and perhaps his less kind criticisms. It's true. I am a monster. And I think that you need a monster to fight monsters. It's true. I am not kind, and that is something that I am working on in my relationship with Jesus Christ because I hate evil, and it fills me with rage, and I want to destroy it. And I see the corruption festering at the heart of our system, and I'm not okay with just bitching about it on the internet. And I'm not okay with sitting there and criticizing the young people that I say I want involved in politics, but as soon as they get involved in politics, my favorite thing to do is gossip about how I feel about them. See, the problem we have is that we have a sin in this country, a deeply rooted, almost cultural sin. And it's apathy. But how does that apathy manifest? It manifests in our unwillingness to become the leaders. It manifests in us saying, well, you go be the leader, and then I'll spend my time criticizing you, and that's doing my democratic duty. That's what people do in this country. It's what they did with Jason Kenney. It's what they're doing with Danielle Smith. It is, I will elect you, and then it's your problem. But the problem is, nobody can fix the problems facing this country. No politician, no great leader of old, nobody, unless you repent. Because the truth is, you decided you didn't want to make sacrifices, that you wanted to be comfortable, that you didn't want to have to be in charge of your society, and you would give that job to others. Now, you don't even know how your political system works. You don't know the amount of money being funneled into the friends of people's pockets inside the system. You don't know the pronoun-using, vax-pushing appointments that the Premier is making in Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills without any Democratic nomination. You praise the Premier. You don't know that babies are still getting the COVID vaccine being recommended by doctors, and no one is doing anything about it, even though it was promised. You don't know that 60% of the United Conservative Party is supportive of having an inquiry into the Gary Davidson Commission, and nothing will be done about it by this government. You don't know because what you want to do is elect a leader and have them do it for you. Now, this is not an old or not a new problem. In fact, it's written about in the Bible. See, there was a judge. His name was Samuel, and he was the leader of Israel in a very dark time, and he led them, and they actually ended up defeating the Philistines and starting to establish their country. But you see, Samuel wasn't a very good father, and he had very weak sons who were easily corrupted. And so the people of Israel came to Samuel, and they said, your sons are corrupted, and you're old. We don't want them to lead us, so give us a king. Go to God, tell him to give us a king. Samuel really didn't like that, so he went to God. And what I like about Samuel is he complains to God. Right? He has the relationship with God where he doesn't just say everything's fine and dandy. Another one of those is Elijah, and I'll get to that in a second. But he goes to God and he says, what is this all about? And God says, they're not rejecting you, Samuel. And I love that. He goes to the heart of the matter, the ego of the prophet, right? Goes right there and he says, it's not about you. Stop thinking about you. It's about the fact that they don't want the responsibility of being free. They don't want me to be their king, God, the perfect king. They want one of their own that they can see, that they can trust, that they can believe in, that they can give the responsibility of leadership to so that they don't have to take it. The people of Alberta want a queen or a king. They don't want to do the hard work of putting on the meetings, of suffering, of having their brake lines cut, or being fined $140,000 by Elections Alberta, or being slandered by your once friends, people you invited to your wedding calling you crazy on national television. They don't want that. You don't want that. And yet, when leaders stand up, when people say, I will fight for you, you know what the response is? Ridicule, gossip, division. In fact, one of the things I hear all the time is, why are there so many groups? Why don't everybody get together? You know what that is? That's you complaining that it's not simple for you. The left doesn't do that. They have thousands of different groups. They've got a group for the lesbians. They've got a group for the trans people. They've got a group for the minors. They've got a group for everybody. Weird that they make that work and we can't. You know what I think it is? Pride. And you know how I know? Because I have that problem. See, I'm going to tell you a funny little anecdote that will hopefully help you understand me and maybe help you understand why I'm still here, that I'm not actually in the wilderness. And the reason that this story is important to me is because this is my relationship with God. This is my testimony. When I was about 11 years old, I was playing a card game with my parents. I'm a very competitive person. And I was up 9-1. The game only went to 10. So I was kind of, cocky, riding the horse around the, you're done. There's nothing you can do. It's over. And my dad, being the pastor that he is, he said, pride cometh before a fall, and a haughty spirit before destruction. And you know what I said? I am proud, God, make me fall. Never won another hand. Got totally wasted in that game. But the funny thing is, that wasn't about that game. And that wasn't actually a raising of my fist to the sky. I've realized it was a prayer. And I can promise you that every time I have got proud, God has smashed me into the dirt. In fact, before Take Back Alberta started, I moved into my parents' house to die. I was absolutely convinced that I was dying. I was 3 months off alcohol and tobacco and going through heavy withdrawal. I had been an alcoholic for about 8 years in politics. I had no dream of saving Alberta. I couldn't go into restaurants. I couldn't board public transportation because I was unvaccinated. And I didn't want to die in Ontario, so I moved back into my parents' basement. But then a friend of mine kept calling me, and he kept saying, David, you have to do something. David, you have to do something. You're the only one that can do this. And so finally I said, well, fine. I'll go meet with this guy, a yak farmer from Olds. And the yak farmer told me that he was friends with a lady named Danielle Smith. And that if we could get Jason Kenney to resign, she would run to be the leader of the UCP. And that gave me just enough of a spark of hope that I started Take Back Alberta. And now we're here. And the truth is, Vince is right. I've made mistakes. I've said things that I shouldn't have said. I am a bit of a monster. But I think what a lot of people here perhaps don't understand, because they're not me, is that I don't care what other people think of me. I'm homeschooled. And some of you might not like that. Some of you might be offended that I don't really care about your opinion. But the truth is, if the wilderness is touring across the United States with Tucker Carlson helping Trump become president, then I guess I was in the wilderness. But I didn't feel like I was in the wilderness. In fact, I felt like I'd escaped, and I was pretty mad at Albertans. I was pretty mad that I spent 2 years of my life, 200,000 kilometers on my truck, over 275 speeches trying to wake you all up. And then I said one mean thing about Pierre Poilievre's wife, and I was a pariah. I was mad, and I was decided that I was going to leave. That I didn't need to save this place. That Albertans probably weren't worth saving. Being very honest with you right now. But you know what? God made me miserable. And I came back. And I don't want to be here. My son was crying as I left the house today. He's only 21 months old. And my wife sent me a picture of him looking out the window, wondering where I'd gone. And he has to feel that a lot. Because I do meetings every night. Whether it's on Zoom or here, giving a speech in Red Deer to the Rebel. I don't make any money off of this. In fact, when the event was canceled at the Pioneer, I put my credit card down. So any of the extra costs of the tonight are going on me. I'm not here for you. I'm here to give you a message. I'm not your leader. I'm not your champion. I'm just a voice. And the voice, the message that I've been told to give you is this: you're running out of time. If you continue to believe that some leader is going to save you, it's over. If you don't do the work, if you don't put in the time, if you don't rise up now, you'll be slaves or you'll be dead. Because the truth is, you're already slaves. Go read the Bible and look at how much of a tax the Israelite slaves paid in Egypt. Do you know what it was, a flat rate? 25%. That was the slaves in Egypt. You're worse off than them. So what are we going to do? What's the answer? Well, I actually think, I said this to Vince earlier tonight, that there is more momentum behind this movement than there was behind the COVID freedom movement. There are more people on side with an independent Alberta than there were with the parental rights movement, where we were demanding that parents were the first authority in their children's lives. Remember the Million March for Children across the country? There's more support for this than that. But there isn't yet enough support. Now, startups often fail. I'm sure people have heard of that. Entrepreneurs often go bankrupt, and Take Back Alberta was not much different. It was the first time I ever attempted to run an organization, and many mistakes were made. But the thing about failure is that you learn from it. In fact, you learn a lot more from failure than you're ever going to learn from success. And one of the things that I've learned from the failures of TBA, and there were a lot of successes, and I've gone over them in many meetings, and we don't need to do that, but from the failures is that there's only one thing truly missing from our movement: leaders. I'm not talking about the people up here that are giving the speeches. I'm talking about the Darlene Clarks. I'm talking to people who will put a stake in the ground and say, I will put on a meeting and I will invite people, and even if nobody comes, I'll put my name on the line. Because here's the thing, all of our groups, everybody that spoke, would be more than happy to promote a meeting. I have 40,000 emails, and I will invite every one of them to your meeting if you put on a meeting. There are hundreds of thousands of followers across Alberta on social media platforms that are very pro-independence that will advertise your meeting. Now, but here's the thing. It's a risk. You might get canceled. You might get fined $140,000 because apparently holding these kind of meetings is political interference. Bad things might happen to you. I'm not going to promise you that this is going to be easy. And if you want to be who we've been as Canadians and even Albertans for most of our lives, peasants, if you want to continue to be subservient wards of the state, then keep living your lives just as you have been. Keep spending your time looking to leaders to fix your problems. Or your boss. But if you actually want to be free, you have to be sovereign over yourself. And then again, Vince is right. See, Jordan Peterson says that the definition of meekness is having a sheathed sword that you don't pull out. I'm not always meek, I admit that. But you don't even have swords. The biggest problem in our political system is not our politicians, it's you. It's that you don't even know how to sit on boards. Now, some of you do. I'm not talking about you. In fact, as Vince pointed out, Darlene was doing all the stuff that I preached that people should do long before I came along. Now, let's do a test. How many people here tonight think that there's horrible things happening in our libraries? Many of you. All right, put your hands down. And how many of you are sitting on the library boards? We have one in the back. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Two. We all saw how many of you recognize that there's a problem, and we've also seen now how many people are doing anything about that particular problem. I sat on a call with about 12 Reform ministers, so it's a church denomination, you probably all heard of it, the Reform, Presbyterian. And they kept telling me that they really wanted to see more morality in politics. I said, then you better get involved in politics. Because just telling people they need to be moral is not going to work. But really the fundamental message is this. The only path forward is repentance. If we truly do have a national sin, if it really is apathy, if you agree with what I've said tonight, then the only option is to stop doing what you've been doing and start doing something else. I come to these meetings looking for one thing: somebody who will put on another meeting. If one person from this room decides to put on another meeting, that's good. If two decide, that's multiplication. That's success. Why are the meetings important? Because if there's only a small number of us, they're going to easily be able to destroy those people. But if we reach a critical mass, there's nothing they can do. Every single successful revolution that I've studied, now there may be some that I haven't. I've studied the French Revolution, the Iranian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, and the American Revolution. All four of those, only 3% of the population participated in any meaningful way. You think it takes everybody. It actually just takes you. The world has only ever been changed by a small, committed group of people who decide they're going to do something. In fact, the world you're living in was created by a small group of people who are committed to a cause. What am I talking about? The woke. Why do you think your justice system is corrupted? Because they decided to take over the law schools. Why do you think your education system is corrupted? Because they decided to take over the teachers' colleges. They went for the places of power, the places of influence, and they showed up, and none of us did. Now, I want to give a little bit of background on this because my mom says this is an important piece, and I trust my mom on these things. But you have to understand the pedigree of communism. See, communism isn't a fixed ideology that doesn't change at all. In fact, it's the opposite. Who here has heard of the concept of thesis, antithesis, synthesis? Right? That is communism. A thesis is created. Then an antithesis is created. They're forced to fight until they come to a conclusion, which is a synthesis. That synthesis becomes a new thesis, and a new antithesis needs to be created, and that is the pattern of growth within communism. So I want to talk a little bit about the original thesis and the antithesis, which has created the current synthesis that we are in. So the original thesis was what everybody knows communism as. There's the oppressed, underclass, working people, and the capital holders, and the working class needs to rise up and overthrow the capital holders so that there could be a utopia. Everybody knows that. It was taught in school, all that. Well, the problem is it doesn't work. It didn't work in China. It didn't work in the Soviet Union, didn't work in Vietnam. And also, they could never seem to get a communist revolution going in America or the United Kingdom or Canada. Why was that? And they did a lot of writing on this. This is the funny thing about communists. They love to write. They publish everything that they do. It's not secret. You just need to go read it. And in their writings, they said, the United States will never have a class war. Capitalism has been too successful for them, and they're too comfortable. We must create a new form of group identity. What did they focus on? Sexuality and race. The communist revolution that you are experiencing right now, and make no mistake, it is a communist revolution, is led by two very powerful guards, the Rainbow Guard and the Green Guard. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's their holy trinity, and it spells D-E-I, which is Latin for God. But what God is it? What God are they worshiping? Themselves. They don't have to believe that reality is real. They get to choose their own reality. Transgenderism. This communist revolution that you're experiencing has infiltrated almost all of your institutions. Most of your churches, pretty much all of your schools, every single university is completely infested by it. Without exception, including Trinity Western University in BC, where I went, which is supposed to be a private Christian university, including Prairie Bible College, everywhere. It has infiltrated almost everything. And if you don't want it to win, you're going to have to start fighting. You're going to have to start sacrificing. Otherwise, you're going to be replaced. You're already being replaced. 2 million people last year. 800,000. 52% of them men, 48% of them women. Over 10 years, that creates a very large gender gap. Why are they almost always fighting age men? Ireland's learning. 15-year-old and a 16-year-old were recently raped. The people protested, tried to hold the perpetrators accountable, and the police were sent. They're being arrested and put into prison. Not the rapist, the people protesting the rapes. Sweden used to be one of the safest places on earth. They now have more explosions than Baghdad. London, I'm told, is completely lost. London, the capital of the British Empire, the center of our civilization for 500 years. Canada has already fallen. It can't be fixed. And if we stay in it, we will go down with them. That's where we are. That's the situation that you face. And my job isn't to win a referendum. It's to do 100 meetings and warn you. Your job is to decide what you're going to do with that information. So I've committed to it. This is number 3. And I'm going to do 100 more meetings. And if Albertans won't listen then, I feel like I will have done my duty. But if we do rise up, if we do decide that we're going to stop living in chains, if we decide we're not going to be in an abusive relationship anymore, if we decide enough is enough and I'm no longer going to be the comfort-seeking, entertainment-loving person that I have been, or even the workaholic, I'm going to take some time and I'm going to build a better society. If we do that, and we do it together, and I think one of the most beautiful things about this meeting is the speakers that come up here. These are all people taking time out of their lives, getting paid nothing, to come and try to convince you to do something. They're just not as mean as me about it. But the truth is, that's why they're here, because they are desperate to see something be done. When did we stop dreaming? When did we start believing that nothing could ever be better and that the status quo is all we can ever have? I get very angry when people are like, oh, you want to make a country? Yeah, it's been done thousands of times. This is not some wondrous new invention that we're creating. They used to do it with ink on parchment. We have all of human knowledge at our fingertips. We can compare and contrast every system. We could even have AI to do it. We could put a committee of 100 people and compare every single constitution that's ever been made, take all the best parts and create a new one. Why have we stopped dreaming? Because they want you to stop dreaming. They want you to be afraid. They want you to consume, pay your taxes, buy your luxuries, watch your hockey games, while they take everything from you. And don't kid yourself, they've already taken everything from my generation. People my age can't afford homes. My children, they'll have homes because I'll make sure of it. But not everyone can do that. And we need to stand up for those people. Maybe everybody here has a home. But the next generation won't. You will own nothing and be happy. Do you know what that is? That's communism. Just another way of saying it. Nothing has changed. So, what can you do? You need to run for municipal council. You need to run for school board. You need to put on a meeting. There's a million things you could do. You don't need me to tell you what to do. Just find one thing and do it. Maybe you're like Dorleen. Maybe you want to put a meeting together. Well, why are we putting 100 meetings together? Because once a person sees that they can get 100 people in a room, they realize the difference that they can make. I want to tell you the story about one of those people, and then I'll conclude here. His name is Mitch Sylvester. He owned a sporting goods store in Bonnyville, Alberta. I've been to Bonnyville many times. Normal Alberta town. Owned a sporting goods store. And he decided that he was fed up when COVID happened. Never been involved in politics at all. Didn't have any background in politics. But he decided he was going to start putting on meetings in Bonnyville. And eventually, he had the biggest meetings in the province. 800 people would show up. When the premier goes to Bonnyville, 1,000 people show up. There's less than 7,000 people that live in Bonnyville. But he wasn't okay with that being it. And when I left Alberta in May of last year to go live in Ontario for a while and work on the Tucker Tour and then go to the States and do the Tucker Tour, he called me every single day. He still calls me every single day. And every single day we talk about what's going on. And every single day we strategize. And every single day. And that was all I did for the freedom movement for almost all of last year. But you know what? That isn't all he did. He did 87 meetings himself. Do you know what that takes? I know what it takes. Do you? To drive all over this province and do 87 speeches? I remember once he drove up 4.5 hours from Bonnyville to Fort Mac. And when he got there, there were 6 people there. 3 of them were the organizers. 4.5 hour drive. There was a lot of yelling on that drive back on the phone with me. But I told him, it won't always be this way. Because I'd already done it. And actually, that's the great Albertan tradition. That's what Ralph Klein did. It's what Jason Kenney did. It's what Danielle Smith has done. That's what we have to do. In Alberta, we talk at town halls. Because then you get to make up your mind. You get to decide, you the people. And that's how it should be. It isn't how it is right now, but it's how it should be. So how do we make that happen? Well, there's 4 things that are happening right now on the independence movement. The first, Tanya's already talked about, so I won't go into too much detail except for to say that initial year of Mitch Sylvester doing 87 meetings has now created the biggest political organization in the province, much bigger than Take Back Alberta, much bigger than the UCP, much bigger than the NDP. 250,000 contacts. That's what they have. The UCP has never had 250,000 members. It's maxed out at 150,000. Their purpose is the collection of the signatures. Now, why is that important? Because to collect the signatures, if we don't collect at least 250,000, not 177,000, because they're going to disqualify many of our people. So we need too big to rig, right? So they need your help. They need a lot of money. That's about a $2.5 million campaign. I've run a lot of campaigns. I know what that will cost. They desperately need your help to put on meetings. Through the hard work of Mitch and everybody else in APP, they are now actually seeing momentum. They've captured the zeitgeist. Things are happening. So I encourage every single person here to seriously do what Tanya said. That's really important, to get 10 people each. I know husbands who've signed up, whose wives totally agree with them, and they haven't signed up. Like, come on. At least get your, marital spouse to also do it. Second thing you can do is there is a movement that we're trying to start here. It's not Take Back Alberta, although we're going to be using Take Back Alberta's lists and whatever we have to make this happen. I'm not somebody who's too interested in titles and things like that. But I want to do these 100 meetings. But the purpose of the meetings isn't the same as APP. The purpose of these meetings is to create 100 Mitch Sylvesters. Okay, 100. Now, not everyone's going to be at Mitch's level. Not everyone's going to be able to travel and do 87 meetings. Not everyone has the financial ability to do that. Not everybody has the drive to do that. But at very least, you could become a leader in your local area and put on a meeting. And if you can't do that, find someone who will and support them in doing it. That's going to be the TBA portion. So there's the APP portion, the TBA portion, then there's another portion happening all over the province very organically through people like Corey Morgan, Michael Wagner. These are experts in independence. These are people who've written books on it, who care about it immensely, who were separatists long before I was. I was not a separatist. I worked in Ottawa. I worked for Stephen Harper. I was a hard Canadian nationalist. I loved Canada. I remember when Sidney Crosby scored that goal. I'm only here now because I think it's the only option. Because if we don't get out, we're going down with them. So support those people. Buy their books. Read their books. It will give you the information you need to have better conversations with others, even more than these speeches, because you're going to have those details. You're going to read them. They're going to be right in front of you. They'll be right in your brain. You won't get tired. You won't nod off. You won't miss what's said. So get those books. But the biggest thing, the thing that has to happen, or we have no hope, is that you all need to start looking for a leadership opportunity and taking it. I don't care if it's on a CA board. I don't care if it's on your church board. I don't care if it's a library board. Start getting leadership experience. Why? Because we don't have enough leaders. There are not enough people willing to do the work of sitting on the boards and making the decisions to the board spots. There are over 10,000 board positions in Alberta just for the provincial government. There's all kinds of places that you can get involved. Don't go and ask someone what you should do. Go find what you should do. The only person you should be asking what you should do is God. And then you should go do it. Stop looking for a leader. Now, there's one other group that I'd like to discuss. It's come up a lot. Vote splitting gets brought up a lot. And that is someone who is leading and is being absolutely attacked relentlessly more than anybody else, because currently he is the most important piece of that puzzle, and his name is Cam Davies. Now, you might not like Cam Davies. You may have heard bad things about Cam Davies. Maybe Cam Davies is mean to poor Danielle Smith, and you really like Danielle Smith. But the truth of the matter is, if Cam Davies doesn't do well in Old Didsbury Three Hills, there probably won't be a separatist movement for much longer. We can pretend that 250,000 people is enough to get 1.5 million votes in a referendum, but it's not. There hasn't been a single poll that has us over 50%. There won't be unless we get momentum. And the East doesn't even take us seriously yet. Carney says there's no real movement, it's a fringe minority. Jason Kenney makes fun of us. I'm used to that, but if Cam Davies doesn't win in Old Didsbury Three Hills, nobody's going to take separatism seriously. Now, this is funny for me to say because I've mocked people who supported smaller parties before and said we should change everything from within, and I still believe that is the case. The best path forward is that the UCP listens to us. They are the government. They are the largest conservative party. But at this moment, what Alberta needs to do to Ottawa is send a message. And the best message that can be sent is to elect someone who is blatantly independence-minded. Now, you don't have any say in that here. But he is currently fighting probably the most intense part of the front lines of this independence battle in the province. Probably Elections Alberta isn't going to like that I said that, but we're already fighting anyway, so. The final group of people that I think we need to pay a lot of attention to is our opponents. And I think there's a lot of very good news there. They're completely disorganized. They're not even having meetings. They have no campaign infrastructure, no leaders. They're splitting into various different camps. So I don't think we have a lot to worry about, to be honest, from the Federalists, apart from the fact that they have all of the institutions and everything. But from a campaign perspective, they have nothing. No momentum. Nobody's excited about staying in Canada. They're scared of leaving. That is our secret weapon. Our opponents are disorganized. They don't believe that we will do anything. They think we're a small fringe minority with unacceptable views. But we're not. And even if we were, small groups of people can do very mighty things. So I'd ask you to do that. Stand up, be counted, and let's save Alberta, and maybe, if we save Alberta, Canada will wake up. And maybe if Canada wakes up, Europe will wake up. And maybe, if you stand up, we can save Western civilization. Thank you. Have a great night.